So this is a sample presentation that represents something that your presentation might look like. It meets the expectations of the assignment rubric that I had provided. So I'll just go ahead and through this. I chose as my topic the law of attraction. So this is something that people have been talking about, for almost 2 centuries, really, but much more recently it's picked up a lot of gained a lot of attention, especially in the 20th century. So I figured I'd do this, and notice that I do the 4 things that I'm asking you to do. One of them is to well, of course, to come up with a topic and provide a little bit of background on the topic. Also, I want you to describe 2 different positions on the topic to give an overview of the topic in that way. And I want you to use at least one of the philosophers of religion that we've studied, describe how this philosopher might assess this situation. And then I want you to share, of course, your own perspective on this and indicate whether you agree or disagree with the philosopher's perspective or with the item that you've chosen for your case study. So again, I've chosen the law of attraction, and so asking whether it is modern chicanery. And here we go. Next slide. So a little bit about the origins. I may have overdone this a little bit. I probably did a little too much in the origins, than a little bit more than I would expect of you. But really, its roots extend all the way back to a period of time when, especially in the Indian subcontinent, many thinkers were developing ideas that could really be identified as monism or non-dualism. It's basically the idea that really everything in the universe is connected. To some extent, you could say that everything in the universe is so connected that it is essentially one thing. That's what monism is, the idea that there's only one thing. Non-dualism meaning that ultimately any duality that we see or perceive is an illusion. So these depict some of the roots, and I provided some expressions and some lines from some truly ancient texts, all of them about 2,500 years old, that illustrate that and develop that philosophically. Now, more recently, there has been something that is sometimes called New Thought. Right? It's the idea that what heals us or what removes our maladies is an awareness of the truth. Right. So one of the pioneers of New Thought, kind of borrowing from some of that the ancient wisdom and the ancient philosophy that I just described, was Phineas Quimby, and he wrote, "By my theory or truth, I come in contact with your enemy and restore you to health and happiness." Right. So the idea is that he's going to any kind of distress or problems you might have in your life, he confronts that by making sure that you are aware of and are focusing on truth. Right. That's his idea. Now, of course, you may be familiar with a movement called Christian Science. They have similar ways of understanding disease or illness or mental problems, and they'll take a similar approach. Okay. Again, I probably overdid this on the background. I'm still kind of describing the background of the law of attraction. So you don't need to go into this much detail, but I thought I'd provide some of these quotes, some of these passages, just to help you understand how the idea is developed and derived from these assumptions that there is this interconnectedness of everything, both physically and spiritually. And so here we'll come into this. Helena Blavatsky wrote, "Why should there be an attraction between the molecules of matter and none between those of the spirit?" Right? So she's comparing the attraction between spirits to the attraction between objects like planets and to gravity. If the law of attraction is admitted as governing the one, why should it be excluded from influencing the other? So she's basically saying, our spirits can attract things in a similar manner as matter attracts things. She says, "We have the unimpeachable testimony of thousands upon thousands that there is a regular science of the soul. This science teaches us how to force the invisible to become visible, the power of living men to bring themselves into communication with the former through the latter." Okay, so she's moving closer to the idea that we can influence the material world with our minds, right, or with our spirits. All right, so again, that's one of the major steps in the development of what we now call the law of attraction. And then finally, more recently, this kind of Abrahamic movement, the Abrahamic idea that you may or may not have heard of. Esther and Jerry Hicks, really uh, the the most prominent, the most well-known, uh, let's see, advocates of the law of attraction and describers of it. There are some central lines or key tenets that they will share, one of which is the idea that you create your every thought, right, which is very similar to that old Buddhist concept that with our thoughts create the world, um, except you create your every thought, suggesting that we are in control of our thoughts. And then they also would say anything that you can imagine is yours to be or do or have, right? So it's connecting the imagination to actual things that you can possess, right? They also say the universe adores you for it knows your broadest intentions. Right? So the idea, this notion that the universe, which ordinarily we would think of as kind of material and impersonal, well, the universe has a kind of personality here. The universe is capable of knowing my intentions. Right? That's quite a step, and that's an important step for the justification for the law of attraction. An earlier version of from their website said this, although they seem to have removed this. It used to say, desirable physical manifestations, such as money, relationships, and lifestyle success, are byproducts of focusing on joy. Okay. So it's important to clarify some terms here. So one of the ideas we think about the power of thought. In a sense, it is the case that things that we focus on are more likely to happen simply because we become more aware of those things and we notice them more easily in the world and we set our goals towards them. And this is not something that is very surprising, right? Because thought affects emotions, beliefs, and actions of the thinker, right? I call this level one. So level one and level two are kind of my ideas about how I would distinguish between these two kinds of attraction. Level one is understood and recognized as a natural feature of human life. If I set my mind to something, then I'm more likely to achieve the goal simply because I will then modify my actions or attune my actions towards that goal, right? And we can say that this is empirically measured and experimentally confirmed. If I psychologically believe that I can achieve something and I practice or I take steps actively to achieve it, then yeah, it's more likely that I will achieve it, right? Okay, now notice that is confined to the thinker, defined to the person who is doing it. Now level two of the power of thought, this takes it to another level. Level two suggests that thought influences actions and events beyond the thinker. The idea that my thinking itself can influence things in the world to occur without me having acted in order for that to happen, right? So it presumes some kind of outer body relationship between thought and matter. The idea that I can affect things in the world without using my body to affect them, right? And this level two is very subjectively perceived and it's anecdotally attested. I'll give you an example. I think my dad some time ago he didn't say this anymore. He stopped saying this. But there was a time when Dad would say we would be pulling into a parking lot and be fairly crowded, and Dad would say, well, my parking space is somewhere around here. It's a good parking space. It's close to the entrance, right? That way we don't have to walk very much. And he would just, really believe that his parking space was going to be made available for him. And even if there wasn't one readily available, he would still, kind of drive around a little bit more. And what do you know? There came one available. So he took that as confirmation that he had attracted for himself an empty parking spot close to the entrance of whatever store we were about to go into. All right, well, the problem is that, once again, that is subjectively perceived and it's anecdotally attested, right? It's just his isolated story or his isolated experience. And he may have several other anecdotes or several other experiences that seem to confirm the law of attraction or his imaginally having produced some kind of effect in the material world. However, there's really no verification. It could have easily been coincidences multiple times and so forth, right? That's entirely possible. It's very subjective, right? Okay, So, all right, just to clarify those different levels of thought. Now, the law of attraction as I'm describing it, as I'm challenging it, as I will challenge it, is level 2. The idea that I can attract things to myself just by imagining or focusing on it. Okay, so evidence for level 2. Do thoughts influence events and actions beyond the thinker? All right, so now here's what I'm doing this point in the presentation. I'm sort of describing the controversy, right? I'm asking about whether level 2, the law of attraction, the idea that I can influence events outside my mind, whether that is accurate, right? Okay, so is there evidence of an out-of-body relationship between thought and matter? Can this causal relationship be empirically measured? Right? Can you do that? Well, there is no empirically measurable evidence, right? All we have is anecdotal stories and subjective experiences. That doesn't really count as something that's verifiable or confirmable, at least not scientifically, or in a measured, consistent way. The relationship cannot be experimentally confirmed. Right? Okay, now, so that's articulating the controversy, but I also, of course, as part of this project, need to bring in a philosopher of religion, right? So one of the philosophers we studied. So naturally, I'm going to choose David Hume for his interesting description of miracles and his skepticism towards them. He writes, or wrote, "It is experience only which gives authority to human testimony, and it is the same experience which assures us of the laws of nature." Right? So we have this experience of people testifying that things have happened, but then we also have experience of natural law. I drop a ball, it falls to the ground. When therefore these two kinds of experience are contrary, so in other words, let's say somebody claimed that just with their mind they were able to cause a ball to levitate instead of falling to the ground. So versus me dropping a ball and it falling to the ground. When these two kinds of experience are contrary, we have nothing to do but subtract the one from the other and embrace an opinion on either one side or the other, with that assurance which arises from the remainder. So in other words, I can't really accept both, right? The laws of nature say that if I drop a ball and nothing is there to stop it from falling except air, it's going to fall. Well, somebody else claims that they were able to cause a ball to levitate with their mind. Those are contradictory ideas, right? So they cancel each other out, as it were. All right, Hume goes on. But according to the principle here explained, this subtraction with regard to all popular religions amounts to an entire annihilation, and therefore we may establish it as a maxim that no human testimony can have such force as to prove a miracle. Right? In other words, to prove a miracle, basically you have to discredit the laws of nature. Right? You have to suggest that there's some violation of the laws of nature. And if somebody claims that they did something that violates the laws of nature, well, it's much more likely that there's some other explanation other than that the laws of nature actually were bent or broken. Those other explanations include the person was mistaken in their perception, or perhaps somebody told a story and then when that story was repeated, it was embellished, or any other kinds of misperception or miscommunication, exaggeration or embellishment. All of those are more likely than that the laws of nature simply were overturned or overridden. So that's David Hume's challenge to miracles. All right. So following Hume's reasoning, if the law of attraction is not experimentally confirmed, and the law of attraction contradicts natural laws, which are experimentally confirmed, then to accept the law of attraction is to reject natural laws. So reason necessitates preferring what is experimentally confirmed, and reason necessitates, therefore, rejecting the law of attraction, because the law of attraction opposes what is experimentally confirmed. And you don't have to do this, but I just figured I was putting together, this is not complete, but I was putting together a formal argument using predicate logic, and it's still a work in progress, so you can kind of ignore it. It was just, icing on the cake, as it were. All right, so notice, at this point, I have described the background of the law of attraction. I've pointed out the controversy and pointed out a couple sides of a couple interpretations of the law of attraction. I've brought in a philosopher, David Hume, to help me kind of assess or analyze the situation. And then finally, I share kind of my thoughts on this, or my conclusion, which really does follow David Hume's reasoning. My conclusion is that the law of attraction is false. thoughts do not cause material events to occur apart from causation by the thinker's body. In other words, if I want to make something happen in the world, it's not enough for me simply to think about it or to focus on it. I have to actually do something in the world or say something, right? But it requires action from my body. It can't just simply go from mind to material outside my body. The effect of, or to put it another way, the effect of thoughts on material events is confined to those mediated by the thinker's body, right? It's confined to those mediated by my body. If I want to really attract something, I have to use my body, either whether it's my mouth or my voice, or whether it's hands or something like that. The expression of my face, those are bodily activities that represent what I want to attract to myself. I have to do that in order to make things happen in the world. There is no direct connection between my mind and the stuff outside my body, at least following along with what we know or have not seen empirically. And then, of course, I add, we need not fall for this psychological trick, the law of attraction. Law of attraction, one of the reasons why I chose it for philosophy of religion too is that it's very similar to, testimonies of miracles and faith healing. Originally, I was going to do faith healing for this project, but I figured I'd do law of attraction. All right, I hope this has been really helpful. And as a little example of what your presentation could look like, obviously I've gone over time, and I think I said something like the expectation is probably your presentation maybe 5 minutes or so, possibly 7, possibly 10, depending on how much you elaborate and whether you're very verbose like I am and have been, or whether you stuff your presentation with material that's not necessarily not so concise, right, as I did. Okay, again, hope this was helpful. I look forward to your presentations. Presentations are usually my favorite part of any semester, especially since I get to really get inside the mind of you. All right, take care. Please feel free to email me or contact me with any questions.